Hi everyone, it is day 8 of 12 days of Pilates. Let's get going. Place the weight into the center of the feet, stand tall, roll the shoulders back and down without pinching, draw the chin slightly in and really lift through the crown of the head. So again, that sense of opposition as we press down, we create this length that presses us upwards. And then moving from here into our sways. So moving forward and back, noticing that slight switching on, that releasing, and again as we move backwards, that slight switching on. So those muscles automatically engaging and releasing as we need them, which is exactly how the body, which is exactly how the body's supposed to work. So we don't need to do so many of those, it's just a little switch on exercise. And then back to center for our side bends. So we've got a couple of options on the side bends now. We can, staying nice and firm through the center of the feet, move into our side bend, just sliding the fingers down. And again, if you wanted to, you could turn to look down towards the floor as you did that, then bring it back to center. So you can add a little bit more movement there if you want to, but essentially we're looking for this side bend. Of course, you could add a little bit more weight into this if you wanted to, just by taking the arms up and without pressing on the head, just holding the fingertips lightly, adding a little bit more weight into that. Maybe not for you if you have any disc issues. So be mindful, be careful, and be sensible. But again, we've got that slight corset wrapping around. We've got that feeling of perhaps lifting a little to pelvic floor. The breath is being pulled in through the nose. It's being taken into the fullness of the rib cage and the upper back, and is being let out through nose or mouth as you see fit. And then bringing it back to center as we move straight into our hip hinge. So no, I've missed out a whole chunk of stuff. So first and foremost, we move into our pedals. I'm so keen to get to my hip hinges. All right, so from here, switching, finding that smooth rise and fall. Placing the weight as always into the center of the foot, that knee bending in line with second and third toe. Remember, you have the option if you wanted to turn the head away from that lifting arm. See if that challenges your balance anymore. Shoulders coming down as arms come up. And those ribs stay drawn in. Try not to take too much movement into the upper back and rib cage. And bring it all the way back down and moving into what has proven to be my nemesis over the last few days, which is the tandem stance. I'm going to start on the other leg today just for a change. I normally always put my right leg forward. It looks like left to you, but it's normally my right. So I'm going to go with my left leg forward first, which means that my weaker leg is to the back. Okay, so I don't know whether this will make any difference, but it's quite nice to have a change occasionally. Draw the inner thighs together. Now remember, you can go slightly apart if you need to. You don't necessarily need to go one behind the other. Open up those hips, drop those tailbones slightly down, the sacrum slightly down, and lift the pubic bone just a little. And notice that you haven't got all your weight only resting into your back foot. Maybe you need to counter surface, or maybe you're starting to find that you don't need that quite so much now. Handy to have it there, but you don't have to use it perhaps. Inner thighs draw together, okay? And maybe this is it for you. And maybe this is it for you today, because it does change every day. Okay, otherwise, arms can come forward, and the forward leg, that's the arm we're going to work with. We're going to take the arm down. We're going to turn the ribs to look towards the hand behind, and then bring it back to center. So that is one of your options. Your other option, of course, is to become a little bit more fluid around the rib cage. With those abdominals still drawn in, just notice again that we're keeping the weight at center. Shoulders are low. It's all very flowing. And then back to center and shake it out. Notice how much effort there is in that back leg. That's another reason why you want to just make sure that you don't put all the weight into the back leg. Otherwise it'll be exhausted by the time you've finished. Okay, changing side. All right, so this is the side I normally start on, and this is where I get very wobbly and I put myself off. So Maybe today will be a different day. All right, so again, don't rush. Make your position, find your stability, find your balance, make those adjustments that you need to make before you then go into it. Because if you're not prepared for it, then you're not going to get the best out of it. All right, so notice whether you need any external support. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Okay? And then notice whether you can take the arms forward, and is it for you today to take, I've just done that side, sorry, I thought it felt weird. Okay, I'm going to change sides. Make sure you change legs, don't do what I've just done. Okay, so if you're just using the arm, just the single arm, it's the same arm as the forward leg. Notice all the work that's going on through the foot, around the toes, into the instep, the ankles, the calves, the knees. If it works for you, you might want to add that little swing, allowing the ribs to be free, but keeping the hips facing forward. And then bring it back to center and relax. So, shaking out those legs, and we'll go into that hip hinge now. All right, so as always, turning side on so you can see the position of my spine. Little softness in the knees. Feet are about hip distance, allow for any natural turnout. We move from the crease of the hips. So engaging lightly through those abdominals. I'm going to cross my arms over my chest because that kind of gets my arms out of the way, but you could put your fingers into your hip creases if that works for you. So we're looking to really work those muscles back edge of the body, particularly on the return. So as we stand. I don't think I need to say an awful lot more about this, do I? I'm pretty sure you're getting to grips with this now. I will remind you though, of course, about the position of the neck. Your eye line travels down the wall. Okay, try to keep the head in the same relationship to the rest of the body. Bring it all the way back up. And just give that a little roll out. And we're going to use that hip hinge again now, part of it, the first portion of it, in our squats. All right, adjust the position of the feet if you need to. And then from here, deciding what you want to do with your arms, you could take them forward, you could just let them rest down. Okay, I'm going to hinge a little and then drive the hips back as if we were going to sit on a low seat, long spine, abdominals in, change your mind and stand back up again. Just do 10 of these. Squeezing, that was 3. So really squeezing through the back edge of the body as you stand up. Remember, if you want to, you can take your arms forward. That adds too much weight into your back. Then do something else with the arms. Maybe cross them over the chest. Notice that your knees track second and third toes as you bend. And let's just do 3 more. So driving it back, but really working on that standing back up. Okay, and then roll those shoulders, shake out those legs, and bring yourself down to lying. Yeah, so down to lying. I have this terrible feeling that I've missed something out. I'm sure I haven't. I'm sure I haven't. Okay, having a moment. All right, you'll let me know if I've missed something, because I know you hate it when I miss something out. I also know you normally only tell me at the very end of a class when I can't do anything about it. All right, don't get my ponytail in there. Okay, so we take a moment to just address our start position. Shoulders wide, back of the neck long, a little something behind the head if you need it, but no more than you absolutely must. Pubic bone pressing forward to open up these spaces front edge of the body, immediately finding, perhaps hopefully, that natural engagement of those abdominals, perhaps a little corresponding lift of pelvic floor. Root into the back of the pelvis, hold that pelvis nice and still. Think about allowing the breastbone to soften down, but the rib cage to move with the breath. And we move into backstroke, arm with opposite leg. So perhaps do a couple of these just to get the feeling of the movement, and again, just putting yourself into the movement. But for those of you that want to add on just a touch more weight, you could, of course, take both arms back as one leg extends forward. Now, let's also think, whether we're working single or double arms, let's also think of adding a foot flexion as we press away. So press the heel away and then point to come back to replace. So push out through the heel, but point to come back. And all these little things just divert the attention a little, which means we automatically have to work to keep the pelvis still, to breathe into the right place. And these are the things that we want to be automatic, because these aren't the things that we think of when we're walking around and moving. These need to be an automatic response from the body. So if we slightly divert our attention by adding other things into it, then we have to automatically be able to engage and to breathe correctly, bring it back to center. Okay, we haven't moved the pelvis, nothing's changed, the abdominals are still slightly engaged, and we move into our single knee float. Remember, just the one leg at a time, foot goes down, and we don't lift the other until that first foot is in place. Now, it's very important that we keep that pubic bone slightly pressing forward to keep these spaces open, even as the knee comes in. If we bring the knee in too close and don't press the pubic bone forward, we'll flatten the back, and we don't need to do that. The object is to maintain the correct curvature of the spine. And I know sometimes people will say, well, imprint your back in order to lift, but that's not how you work. That's not how you move naturally. Okay, so this might work for you. In that case, stay here. Otherwise, for those of you that want to, we're going to float the right knee up. We're going to keep that knee above the hip, a 90-degree angle, thigh to torso. We're going to keep those arms long, those shoulders relaxed. We're definitely going to be aware of what's going on through the lower body. And when we're ready, we're going to float that left leg alongside. When we're ready, we're going to float that right leg back down. That gets pretty heavy as it gets close to the floor. Watch that pelvis. And then the left leg down. And we'll start this time with the left leg. So we've gone from an up, down, alternate movement into an up, up, down, down. And you might sometimes hear these called first level and second level of table. You know, different instructors have different names. So I tend to call this a double knee float. That doesn't mean to say I bring both legs up at the same time though. And we'll do this just one more time, or a couple more times if you're working the up, down, up, down. So I'm holding my pelvis still. I'm definitely not gripping around my shoulders. My breath is still smooth. Lovely. And then I'm all the way back down. Good. I'm going to keep that position of my pelvis as I bring my knees and my feet together. Both feet in one shoe, both legs in one trouser leg. Arms either out wide or crossed over the chest. Slightly narrower here if you bring the arms over the chest. So if you want just a little bit more connection, take the arms wide. My upper body stays perfectly still. I'm moving out of my lowest ribs towards my lumbar spine as I take both knees over towards my left. I lift the right side of my pelvis. I've got this feeling of stretch coming across my waist and down towards the front edge of my hip. And then I'm going to bring my knees back to center. I'm going to change sides. So of course I'm not holding my breath on this. So I personally tend to breathe in as I take my knees over to the side and breathe out as I bring it back to center. You may not like that. You may wish to work it the other way, and that's fine, as long as your breath is still being drawn in through the nose into the fullness of your rib cage and you're not holding the breath. We have no breath retentions in Pilates. We don't need them. Everything is fluid. And the breath should stay the same length as well. So always match the speed of your movement. Well, I say always, a couple of variations, but generally match the speed of your movement with the natural length of an unforced breath. Just do that one more time. That wrapping corset is the thing that's going to really help to bring those knees back to center. Lovely. Okay, and then release the arms wherever they are. Take your feet a little bit wider, drop your knees together, and then just gently windscreen your knees from side to side before bringing yourself over to the side and coming to seated. Okay, now, as we said yesterday, how you sit or where you sit is up to you, but we do want to feel that we're able to sit upright. So it's really easy for me to sit on my bench, but I could equally, in fact I will today, I'll sit here this way so that you can see the movement from the side. Okay, so I don't necessarily like cross legs, okay? You can have your legs straight, or I go prayer position. You could even have a little bend in the knee if you wanted to, it doesn't really matter. But I don't really encourage a cross-legged position. But get right up onto the bones of your bum, draw the chin in, think about the length that we create in standing and recreate that from sitting. It's not as easy, but that's what we have to work for. So we've still got that slight corset wrapping around, shoulders drawn down. We're going to take the arms forward and we're going to start pulling back on our bowstring. So, which way do you breathe here? Well, you might want to breathe out as you rotate and breathe in as you come to center. Give it a go, see what you think. And then when you've done that a few times, pause and then breathe in as you rotate and out as you return to center. And do that a few times. Which do you prefer? And that's the natural inclination of your breath. So that's what you need to do. Now, you keep that going, and I want you to really now be aware of what's happening with your hips. I'm going to turn face on again. So I need to keep my hips really still, unless I have something going on with my sacroiliac joint, okay? That would be different. Then you would be quite fine to move your pelvis like you were bum walking forward. Otherwise, those hip points stay forward as you rotate. The movement comes from your ribs, from the thoracic area of your spine. And whereas before on our knee rolls, we tried to stabilize our upper body in order to rotate the lower body, now we're stabilizing the lower body in order to rotate the upper body. Growing a little taller on these last few. So keep lifting up. Notice that we're not leaning back. Pelvis still, back to center, just release, roll the shoulders, release the neck. Okay, our next movement is our roll down from seated. Now, this is not for everybody, okay? There are lots and lots of modifications. I'm going to spend a bit of time going through this with you. This is not an ideal movement for you if you have been diagnosed with osteopenia or osteoporosis, okay? So if that's the case, this possibly isn't the move for you, and I would suggest that you go back to one of the previous exercises. I would also suggest that if that was the case, then you would want to perhaps limit your range of movement on your side bends and your rotations as well. But unloaded flexion can be a real problem, and that's what we're going to do now. So, people often say to me, I can't do this, I'm not strong enough, and I can tell you for nothing that this is mainly to do with the mobility of your spine and not your strength, okay? Choose whether you want to have your legs straight, okay? So I've got my legs straight, and I've actually got my feet flexed as well, but they're out of the picture. I've got my feet flexed, my toes are to the ceiling. I'm sitting right up onto the bones of my bum. So I've got that curvature of my low spine, my chest and my upper back are open, my chin is drawn in. So I've got the same sense of length and distance and opposition that I would always be looking for, okay? So you can have your legs straight, you can equally do that with the legs bent. Doesn't matter whether your feet are flat or whether you're on your heels, doesn't matter, okay? So let's take those arms forward, drop the shoulders away from the ears, and from here, soften the chin in, and as if somebody had hold of the back of your pants, just pull away and roll off the bones of your bum. Now at the same time, let somebody else gently pull your fingers forward. And then draw the arms down, restack the pelvis, restack the spine, lift through the crown of the head, come all the way back up to where you were, and then do that again. So it's possible that for those of you where the full roll down isn't appropriate, this will work for you. Now, what's really important actually is the restacking. It's the restacking of the spine as you come back up that's more important than the pulling away. But let's talk bony landmarks. When we come to do that pulling away, okay, what we're really doing is we're bringing the bony landmarks of the pelvis up as we tilt and press away into that low back. And we're bringing the bony landmarks of the upper body down as we are gently drawn forward from our fingers. So we get this lovely C curve in our spine. And we do that without any pushing of the head. You're not a chicken, don't push your head forward. So that would be the first portion of the movement, okay? If that works for you and that's appropriate for you, I would urge you to stay with that. Okay, don't go any further, don't feel obliged, there's no prizes and nobody's watching, okay? So you don't have to prove anything to anyone. If that's appropriate for you, stick with that. All right, so if you were able to take it a little bit further though, I'm just going to give myself a little bit of room to do this. Again, with my legs straight or bent, it doesn't matter, but feet must connect to the ground. At this point, I would also say, please don't ever do this with your legs anchored. So no feet underneath the bookcase or underneath the bed or underneath the dog, none of that. Don't anchor your feet, okay? So we need to work how to do this through our spine, not from having our feet pinned down by some external force. All right, so the first part of the movement is exactly the same. We sit up nice and tall, we lightly engage, lift through pelvic floor, engage those abdominals, draw the chin through, think about the breath. And as you breathe out, pull away through that low back, let those arms be pulled forward like somebody was trying to hold you into place. Now it might be that you are able to roll further. Now, if you get to a point where you think, I'm losing it, and you fall, okay, that's the point at which you stop. So maybe you get to here, those abdominals really wrapping around, pubic bone still lifting, then let those fingers lead you forward in order to restack and come all the way back up again. So if you know you're going to lose control, only go as far as you can control and then come back. Okay, so perhaps just going to this first portion, perhaps going a little bit further, or for some of you, perhaps even able to go all the way down. Imprinting that low back, and then coming to rest, letting the arms come up to the ceiling. At this point, you should be in the same lying neutral position that we had earlier when we started back stroke. The feet might be a little bit further away, your legs might be long, but the spinal position should be the same. Softening into those ribs, and if it works for you, you can take those arms back as if to touch the floor. We know we don't need to touch the floor. And then we bring the arms back up, we breathe in. As we breathe out, the fingertips are going to lead you through. So the chin softens, the ribs slide down, the breastbone slides down. We press the pubic bone forward and we roll through to the tip of the shoulder blades. Now it's normally at this point that people start to do this. And then they eventually get fed up of doing that. Their leg comes up, they grab hold of their thigh and they start to push into their elbow. It all starts to get a little bit ugly. Okay, so you pull through, and then when you've got to the tip of your shoulder blades, think about pulling the pubic bone towards you, pulling those sitting bones towards you, and see if that takes you any further, allowing you to come up, restack the spine, and you're ready to go again. So give that a go, but I have to say, if that doesn't work for you, and you go and get so far, and then you feel like you're like a square wheel, you know, then all you do, assuming you've got down safely, you come up, you roll to the point at which you can roll to, and then release, roll over to the side, push through the hands, come up and work on the roll down. So get that roll down super smooth before you start trying to force the roll up. If you can't roll down smoothly, it's really unlikely that you're going to roll up smoothly. Okay, so I'm going to run through the whole movement again. Told you I was going to go through this in detail, didn't I? All right, so again, with legs straight or bent, it doesn't really matter, but start and finish from that lifted position. And from here, pull away through that low back, abdominals are drawn in, shoulders slide down, chin slightly softens in, fingers continue to reach, it's like you've got hold of the wall ahead of you. So fingers reach forward, pubic bone continues to lift as you try to curl through, stopping at any point and returning under control. Or if you can, rolling all the way down, widening those shoulders, letting the head come to rest, bringing the arms up to the ceiling, and at this point, pressing pubic bone forward so we've got that openness through the front of the body that we've spoken about from day one. And we let the arms come back perhaps, but softening into those ribs. Then we bring the arms up. We take the fingers forward, the fingertips lead the charge, the back of the neck is long, the shoulders slide over, the rib cage slides down, the breastbone slides down. We roll through to the tip of the shoulder blades. If you can, slightly pulling the pubic bone towards you now, engaging further still into abdominals and pelvic floor, rolling through, coming all the way up. Of course, if you can't, you roll over onto the side of the body to do that, to come all the way back up. And if you need to, just go back over this bit again and just practice that. But the thing about this movement is the lack of force. So if you go down like a square wheel in big chunks, then it's really unlikely that you're going to come up smoothly. And all you're doing is you're going to get yourself frustrated, you're going to run the risk of injury, you're going to make it forceful and ugly, and it should be fluid, and it should be pleasant, and it should be nice to look at, you know, all of those things. But above all, it should be controlled. All right, so there you go. That's our roll down from seated. And for some of you, the roll back up again, but not necessarily everybody. We will go through that again, but I would just say if you're not so great at that, then maybe just do this portion of the video a couple more times. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Take care.